They lied. They manipulated. They humiliated you. And now they want to smile, make small talk, and act like nothing ever happened. Have you ever noticed how, somehow, you become the dramatic one just because you remember the pain they caused? Think about that for a moment. Why is it that the people who hurt us the most are often the same ones demanding we move on as if their actions carried no weight? Here's the truth. Actions have consequences, or at least they should. But we live in a world where forgiveness is treated like a birthright, where people screw you over, toss out a half-hearted apology, and expect you to sweep the broken pieces under the rug yet again. And if you don't, you're labeled cold, bitter, unforgiving. Does that sound familiar? Society loves to preach, be the bigger person, let it go, don't hold grudges. You've seen it on social media, in self-help slogans, even in well-meaning advice from friends. But here's the darker side of that message. It often pressures the kind-hearted, the empathetic, the ones with the deepest sense of responsibility, into tolerating what should never be tolerated, into giving endless chances to people who never change. And let me ask you, how many times have you silenced your instincts for the sake of peace? How many times have you second-guessed your right to be angry, or felt guilty for finally saying enough? If you've ever been there, this video is your wake-up call. Because holding someone accountable is not cruel, it's necessary. Drawing a line in the sand doesn't make you heartless, it makes you whole. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, once said, "You have power over your mind. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength isn't about revenge, and it's not about rage. It's about refusing to let your dignity be disposable. In this video, we're going to break down 7 brutally honest reasons why some people absolutely deserve the consequences of their actions. And just as important, we'll uncover why setting those consequences is not an act of cruelty, but one of self-respect, growth, and even love. As we go through these 7 truths, I want you to reflect. Who in your life has crossed the line again and again, only to expect your silence? Who has mistaken your kindness for weakness? And most importantly, what would it look like if, starting today, you reclaimed your peace instead of constantly protecting theirs? Stay with me, because this isn't just a list. It's a blueprint for ending the cycle. It's a reminder that forgiveness and consequences are not opposites. They are partners. Forgiveness heals you on the inside, but consequences teach others on the outside. Without both, the cycle continues. With both, the cycle ends. So, let's get into it. 7 reasons why enforcing consequences is not an act of cruelty. It's your responsibility. Let's start with the first truth. Some people are not truly sorry for what they did. They're only sorry they got caught. Think about it. How many times has someone lied, disrespected you, or crossed a boundary, and then, once exposed, they rushed out an apology? Not because they suddenly grew a conscience, but because they were cornered. Because silence would cost them something they wanted: your trust, your access, your forgiveness. That's not remorse. That's self-preservation. This is where we need to separate 2 ideas that society often mixes together: forgiveness and consequences. Forgiveness is an internal process. It's about your healing, your freedom, your ability to release bitterness so it doesn't poison you. Consequences, on the other hand, are external. They're what another person must face as the natural result of their actions. Here's the danger. When we collapse forgiveness into no consequences, we send the worst possible message: what you did worked, so you can do it again. And guess what? They will. Because human psychology is simple. Behavior that works gets repeated. Just like a child who touches a hot stove learns not to do it again, an adult who manipulates and faces no pushback learns the opposite. This is safe for me to keep doing. Forgiving someone without holding them accountable isn't compassion, it's self-erasure. It's like erasing your own boundaries with an apology-shaped eraser. You're telling yourself, my dignity is optional, my peace is disposable. The Stoics understood this long before psychology gave us terms like reinforcement or conditioning. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That strength doesn't mean changing other people. It means choosing your response. It means refusing to let someone else's "I'm sorry" reset the slate when their actions still scream otherwise. Let me give you an example. Imagine a friend who betrays your trust by gossiping about something deeply personal. You confront them and they say, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that." A week later, they do it again. Another apology follows, then again. At some point, you realize they're not apologizing to change. They're apologizing to reset, to wipe the slate clean without earning it. And this is where your power lies. You don't need to rage or seek revenge. You simply let their actions write the rules of the relationship from that moment forward. If they lie, the consequence is you don't trust them. If they disrespect you, the consequence is distance. That's not cruelty, it's reality. Because here's the truth, remorse without change is manipulation. And your silence, your distance, your boundaries, those become the real teachers. If they are capable of growth, they'll learn. If they're not, then their anger at your boundary only reveals the truth you've needed all along. They were never sorry, only sorry they got caught. So the next time someone tells you to forgive and forget, remember this. Forgiveness can be silent, but consequences are earned. And your self-respect depends on giving both. Now let's move to the second reason. Patterns of disrespect are rarely accidents. Think about someone in your life who has hurt you not just once, but repeatedly. Maybe it's a sibling who always knows exactly which words cut the deepest, dropping them into every conversation like poison darts. Maybe it's a friend who disappears whenever you're struggling, only to reappear when life is good, ready to bask in your success but absent when you needed support. Or perhaps it's a partner who brushes off cruel remarks with, "Can't you take a joke?" There comes a moment, and maybe you've felt it before, when something clicks inside you. When you suddenly realize this isn't stress, it's not forgetfulness, it's not bad timing, these aren't mistakes, these are patterns. And patterns reveal intent. Let me share a story. Evelyn, a retired woman I once knew, devoted her life to caring for her husband. After he passed away, one of her daughters began visiting more often. At first, Evelyn thought it was love. She proudly told her neighbors, "She's really showing up for me now." But over time, those visits turned transactional. The daughter began hinting about money, about bills, about sacrifices she was supposedly making. Grateful and lonely, Evelyn gave in. First with small help, then larger loans, and eventually even opening new credit cards in her name. Whenever Evelyn hesitated, her daughter would disappear only to return with apologies and reassurances, just long enough to win back her mother's trust. The cycle repeated again and again. And here's the hardest part. Evelyn wanted so badly to believe the love was real, she convinced herself these betrayals were just misunderstandings. But they weren't. They were calculated. This is how patterns of disrespect work. Violation, minimization, temporary charm, then violation again. And each time the cycle grows stronger because there's no consequence breaking it. Research in psychology confirms what the Stoics already knew centuries ago. People repeat behaviors that serve them, especially when those behaviors are never challenged. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone shows me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." But notice he didn't say it was your job to force someone to change. Your responsibility isn't to rewrite another person's character. It's to accept the truth of what their actions reveal and protect yourself accordingly. That's why one of the most powerful tools you can use is documentation. Not to hold grudges, not for revenge, but for clarity. Write down the dates, the words, the actions, and how they made you feel. Because memory is tricky, especially when guilt, love, or manipulation fogs your judgment. But when you see it written out in black and white, the pattern becomes undeniable. And here's where Stoicism comes in. Suffering doesn't come only from what happens to us, but from our denial of what island. Every time we excuse repeated cruelty as an accident, we extend our own pain. The first time someone hurts you, it might be a mistake, but the third, the fifth, the 10th time, that's a choice. And if you don't believe them the first time they show you who they are, the cost is always your peace. So, reason number 2, disrespect repeated is not an accident, it's a decision. And the moment you accept that truth, you stop waiting for another apology and start preparing the boundaries that will finally set you free. Reason number 3, your boundaries are not walls of selfishness. They are shields that protect your self-worth. Did you know your brain physically rewires itself based on repeated emotional experiences? Neuroscientists call it neuroplasticity. That means every time you allow someone to mistreat you without consequence, your brain slowly starts to accept that mistreatment as normal. And that's the danger. Because over time, it's not just your relationships that suffer, it's the way you see yourself. Think back for a moment. How many times have you bitten your tongue when someone said something cruel just to avoid conflict? How many times have you told yourself they didn't mean it, when deep down you knew they did? Each one of those moments whispers a devastating message to your subconscious. My feelings don't matter. My dignity isn't important. My peace is less valuable than their comfort. That's how self-worth erodes. Not all at once, but slowly, drip by drip, until one day you wake up and realize you've been living in a story that tells you you're not worth protecting. The younger version of you, the one who once believed in respect and fairness, would be horrified at what you've learned to tolerate. But here's the antidote: consequences. Boundaries are not about controlling other people. They're about controlling your own emotional reality. They are statements of truth. I will not accept being spoken to that way. If it happens again, I will leave the conversation. Or, if you keep showing up late without notice, I'll stop including you in plans. These are not threats. They are facts. And I know what many of you might be thinking, but what if they get angry? What if they think I'm cold? What if I lose the relationship? Those fears are natural, but here's the hard truth. Anyone who explodes with outrage at your healthy, reasonable boundaries never respected you in the first place. Their anger isn't about your change, it's about their loss of control. Let me put it this way. Boundaries that bend under pressure aren't boundaries at all. They're invitations for mistreatment to continue. And some people will test you. They'll cry, they'll guilt trip, they'll accuse you of changing. They'll promise they'll be better just one more time, anything to get you to drop your guard. But if your boundary collapses at the first push, the cycle only deepens. The Stoics taught that strength doesn't mean never feeling pain. It means refusing to let that pain dictate your worth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind. So the next time someone tells you boundaries are selfish, remember this. Protecting yourself isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's the quiet, powerful declaration that your dignity is non-negotiable. And that's not just self-respect, it's survival. Reason number 4. Enabling someone's bad behavior is not compassion, it's slow self-destruction. There's a phrase I want you to remember. What you allow is what will continue. Think about that. Every time you forgive without requiring change, every time you cover for someone's mistakes, every time you absorb the pain and call it love, you're not helping them. We often confuse enabling with kindness. We tell ourselves, I'm being patient, I'm being understanding, I'm keeping the peace. But let's be brutally honest. Most of the time, what we're really doing is shielding people from the natural consequences of their actions. And here's the hard truth. When you protect someone from consequences, you don't save them. You stunt them. They don't grow. They repeat. Imagine someone you care about is drinking poison every day. Instead of confronting the source, you quietly clean up the mess, hide the symptoms, and hope they'll get better. You wouldn't call that compassion, you'd call it denial. That's what emotional enablement looks like. It's empathy twisted into avoidance. It's loyalty weaponized against you. And here's the most painful part. Enablers are rarely weak people. In fact, they're often the strongest in the room. The ones who can endure, the ones who carry the heaviest load, the ones who think, I can take it. But endurance without boundaries is not strength, it's self-erasure. Let's connect this with Stoicism. The Stoics taught us that true love is rooted in truth, not in fantasy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if it is not right, do not do it. It means allowing them to face it, even if it's uncomfortable, because growth lives in discomfort. So what does this look like in real life? Let's say someone constantly disrespects your time, showing up late, canceling last minute, making you feel small. Enabling means you excuse it. They're busy, they didn't mean it, I'll just adjust. But consequences mean you calmly state, if you keep doing this, I won't include you in plans anymore. No shouting, no revenge, just clarity. And yes, they might get angry. They might guilt trip you, accuse you of being selfish, or promise they'll change if you give them just one more chance. That's not your cue to bend. That's your confirmation. The boundary is working. Because people who are invested in control panic when they lose it. So ask yourself this. If nothing about this person ever changes, what do you need to do to protect your peace? That answer, that's your truth. That's your path. Remember, enabling isn't kindness. It's abandonment in slow motion. Abandonment of them because you keep them from facing reality. An abandonment of yourself because you sacrifice your dignity to protect their comfort. True compassion has the courage to say, no more. And sometimes that's the only thing that sets both of you free. Reason number 5. Reclaiming your power is the only path to real peace. Take a moment and think back to a time when someone crossed your boundaries again and again. Do you remember how it felt in your body? The tightness in your chest that wouldn't go away. The knot in your stomach every time their name popped up on your phone. The heavy shoulders. That wasn't just stress, that was your nervous system sounding the alarm. That was your dignity being quietly dismantled while you told yourself, it's easier to stay quiet than to make it worse. I once knew a man named Carl. In his 70s, gentle, soft-spoken, the kind of neighbor who always brewed extra coffee in case someone dropped by. After his wife passed, his adult son began helping, more running errands, handling bills, even making medical appointments. But slowly, that help turned into control. Carl's choices shrank. His money, his time, even who could visit him was dictated by someone else. And when I asked him why he didn't push back, his answer was heartbreaking. It's just easier this way. I don't want to start a fight. But here's the reality. Carl had already lost the relationship he was afraid of losing. Not because he set a boundary, but because he never did. This is what happens when we hand over our power to people who misuse it. We become shadows of ourselves. Their moods become our weather forecast. Their approval becomes our oxygen. And somewhere in that storm, we forget that our needs are just as valid as theirs. Now imagine the opposite. Picture yourself standing in Carl's shoes, but this time, instead of silence, you calmly say, no, that's not acceptable to me. No rage, no drama, just clarity. Imagine the freedom of not bracing for their reaction, of waking up each day knowing your life belongs to you again. That vision isn't a fantasy, it's your birthright. And it starts with one powerful decision: enforce the consequences. Stoic philosophy reminds us that revenge and justice are not the same. Revenge is about making someone suffer. It comes from pain. And even when you win, it leaves you empty. Justice, on the other hand, restores balance. It says, this is harmful, and I won't participate anymore. Justice heals, Revenge poisons. Here's the truth. The person who hurt you may never apologize. They may never admit their wrongs. They might even continue as if nothing happened. But their growth is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to protect your peace, honor your truth, and choose what serves your highest good. Ask yourself the most powerful question. If this person never changes, what must I do to create peace in my own life? That answer, that's your compass. And every time you act on it, you rebuild trust with the one person you need most, yourself. Mercy is for the remorseful, not for repeat offenders who treat your boundaries like a joke. You deserve peace more than they deserve another chance. Reclaiming your power is not about punishing them, it's about liberating you. Reason number 6. Sometimes the most powerful consequence you can give someone is silence. We live in a world obsessed with reaction. Social media thrives on outrage, arguments, and instant responses. But here's what most people don't realize. Silence can be louder than any confrontation. It unsettles people because it forces them to sit with the echo of their own actions. Think about it. When someone mistreats you, they often expect one of two things. Either you'll explode in anger, which allows them to paint you as overreacting, or you'll sweep it under the rug, which gives them a free pass. But silence? Silence denies them both outcomes. You're not feeding their narrative, and you're not giving them permission. You're simply leaving them face to face with the reality of what they did. There's a reason psychologists call silence a social mirror. Human beings are deeply uncomfortable with it. When you don't react, when you don't rush to explain or defend yourself, you take away their control of the story. And in that quiet space, they're forced to wrestle with their own conscience if they have one. I once heard a story about a man who discovered his close friend had been spreading rumors behind his back. Instead of confronting him with a heated argument, he simply withdrew. No texts, no calls, no explanations. Just silence. At first, the friend tried to joke it off. Then he tried to guilt him. Finally, he showed up demanding to know, "Why aren't you talking to me?" The answer was clear without ever being spoken. Because you broke something that words alone can't fix. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." Silence is a choice of reaction. It's not weakness, it's strength. It communicates, I refuse to argue with disrespect. I refuse to spend energy explaining truths you already know. Your action spoke. My silence is the consequence. Of course, silence is not about playing games or giving the cold shoulder for manipulation. It's about clarity. If someone lies, cheats, or disrespects you, the natural consequence is distance. Silence is that distance embodied. It doesn't need drama. It doesn't need a speech. It simply says, you no longer have access to my peace. Ask yourself, how many times have you wasted energy explaining yourself to someone who already knew they were wrong? How many times have you given endless speeches to people who were never listening? What would happen if, instead, you let silence do the work? Here's the paradox. Silence doesn't just protect you, it teaches them. If they are capable of growth, they will learn from the void your absence creates. And if they're not, their reaction to your silence will reveal everything you need to know. They weren't sorry. They were only sorry they lost access to you. So remember this. Silence is not emptiness. It is a message. It is a mirror. And sometimes, it's the only language that dishonorable people will ever understand. Reason number 7. Protecting your mental energy is not selfish, it's your duty. We don't often think about our inner energy the way we think about money or time, but maybe we should, because just like your bank account, your mental energy is finite. Every argument, every repeated betrayal, every moment you spend justifying someone else's bad behavior, it all drains from the same account. And if you're not careful, you'll spend it all on people who don't deserve even a dime. Here's the hard truth. Every time you forgive without boundaries, you're not just giving them another chance. You're giving away a piece of yourself. You're handing them hours of sleep, focus you could have spent on your goals, and peace you could have shared with those who actually value you. That is not kindness. That is neglect of yourself. The Stoics remind us, you may not control all outside events, but you control what you allow to enter your mind. Think about that. Every time you let a toxic person invade your thoughts, replay their words, or dictate your mood, you've handed over your most valuable resource, your inner calm. And once it's gone, it takes a long time to rebuild. Let me give you an example. A woman I know, let's call her Sarah, had a coworker who constantly belittled her ideas in meetings. She would go home, replay the comments for hours, lose sleep, and wake up exhausted. The coworker? He slept just fine. One day, she finally decided, my energy is too expensive to spend on him. Instead of arguing or begging for respect, she limited her conversations with him to essentials, stopped seeking his approval, and focused on allies who valued her contributions. The difference was night and day. For the first time in months, she felt light again, not because he changed, but because she chose to protect her energy. And that's the key. Your energy is not unlimited. If you waste it on chaos, you won't have enough left for your dreams, your health, or the people who truly matter. Protecting your peace isn't about building walls to shut the world out. It's about choosing where your strength flows. Now, some people will call that selfish. They'll say, you've changed, you don't care anymore. But let me ask you, what kind of love demands that you burn yourself out just to keep someone else comfortable? What kind of relationship requires you to erase yourself to keep it alive? That's not love, that's control. The Stoics would argue that true duty begins with the self. You cannot serve others, you cannot live wisely, you cannot love deeply if you are constantly drained. Protecting your mental energy is not abandoning others, it's refusing to abandon yourself. So the next time you feel guilty for drawing a line, remind yourself of this. You are the guardian of your inner world. Your peace is not a luxury. It's not optional. It's your responsibility. And protecting it isn't just an act of survival, it's the foundation of the life you deserve to build. We've walked through 7 cold, unflinching truths about why some people absolutely deserve the consequences of their actions. From the fake apologies of those who are only sorry they got caught, to the repeated patterns of disrespect that reveal calculated choices, to the erosion of your self-worth when boundaries are ignored, to the danger of enabling others and calling it compassion, to the power of reclaiming your peace, the strength of silence, and the duty of protecting your mental energy. Every reason builds to one final truth. You deserve peace more than they deserve another chance. And I want you to let that sink in, because for too long, many of us have carried the silent burden of guilt. Guilt for saying no, guilt for stepping back, guilt for protecting our sanity while others call us cold or selfish. But here's what the Stoics knew. Guilt is often just the echo of bad training. Society trains us to think endless forgiveness is noble, even when it destroys us. But wisdom, true wisdom, is knowing when mercy becomes self-betrayal. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not true, do not say it. If it is not right, do not do it." That applies not only to how we treat others, but also to how we treat ourselves. It is not right to let your dignity be disposable. It is not right to silence your instincts for the sake of peace. It is not right to hand your life over to those who have proven they won't cherish it. Let's be clear, enforcing consequences isn't about revenge. Revenge is rooted in pain and leaves you empty even if you win. But consequences, they're reality. They're not punishment. They are simply allowing the natural order of things to unfold. If someone lies, you stop trusting them. If they disrespect your time, you stop giving them your time. If they repeatedly cross your boundaries, you stop giving them access. Not because you're cruel, but because you're done betraying yourself. And here's the beauty of it. When you enforce consequences consistently, something shifts inside you. You stop living in reaction. You stop rehearsing imaginary arguments in your head. You stop waiting for people to change. Instead, you live with clarity, with calm, with the quiet confidence that your peace is no longer negotiable. So ask yourself one last question. If nothing about this person ever changes, what must I do to create peace in my own life? That answer is your compass. That's your truth. And the moment you follow it, you step into a life that belongs fully to you. You're not cruel for setting boundaries. You're not heartless for protecting your energy. You're not selfish for saying enough. You are strong, you are wise, and you are free. So as we close, remember this. Forgiveness is optional, but self-respect is not. Mercy is for the truly remorseful, not the repeat offenders. And peace is not something you wait for others to give you. It's something you claim for yourself right now. If this message resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Because this journey doesn't end here,